James Carter felt trapped. His days were a blur of spreadsheets and algorithms. He sat in his cubicle, staring at the glow of his computer screen. Numbers swam before his eyes. He was a data analyst, a master of logic and reason. But deep down, James felt a growing emptiness. This was not the life he had envisioned. James had always been good with numbers. He excelled in math and science. A career in data analysis seemed like a safe and practical choice. He landed a stable job at a reputable firm. He climbed the corporate ladder, rung by rung. Yet, with each promotion, he felt a part of himself fading away. He longed for something more, a creative outlet, something to ignite his soul. But the demands of his job left little room for anything else. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. James was living a life of quiet desperation. He was a cog in the machine, going through the motions. He had forgotten what it meant to feel truly alive. The news came as a blow. James's company was downsizing. His position, deemed non-essential, was being eliminated. He sat in stunned silence as his boss delivered the news. The words seemed to echo in his ears. "We have to let you go." Panic surged through him. His carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. What was he going to do? How would he pay his bills? Fear gnawed at him, whispering doubts and insecurities. The future seemed like a dark and uncertain abyss. For the first time in years, James felt truly lost. He went through the motions of packing up his belongings. He said goodbye to colleagues he barely knew. As he walked out of the office building, a strange sense of liberation washed over him. It was the feeling of hitting rock bottom, of having nothing left to lose. In the midst of the uncertainty, a tiny flicker of hope ignited within him. Maybe, just maybe, this was a chance for a new beginning. Back in his small apartment, James felt adrift. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the constant hum of the office. Aimlessly, he began to tidy up, sorting through boxes filled with remnants of his past. And that's when he found it, tucked away on a dusty shelf, his old sketchbook. He blew off the layer of dust and gently opened the worn cover. Faded sketches, remnants of a forgotten passion, greeted him. He traced the lines with his fingers, memories flooding back. He remembered the joy of creation, the feeling of losing himself in his art. He had always loved to draw, to capture the world around him with his pencil. As a child, he dreamed of becoming an artist. He would spend hours sketching, filling notebooks with his imagination. But somewhere along the way, he had abandoned that dream. Life had gotten in the way. Practicality had triumphed over passion. Holding the sketchbook in his hands, James felt a familiar longing stir within him. He missed the feeling of creating, of bringing something beautiful into the world. That night, James couldn't sleep. He dug out his old art supplies, his fingers trembling with anticipation. He sharpened his pencils, the familiar scent of cedar filling the air, and then he began to draw. Time seemed to melt away as James lost himself in his art. He started with simple sketches, a bowl of fruit, a vase of flowers, the view from his window. With each stroke of his pencil, he felt a sense of release, a weight lifting from his shoulders. He experimented with different mediums, charcoal, pastels, watercolors. He rediscovered the joy of mixing colors, of creating different textures and shades. He drew whenever he could, in the mornings before the day began, in the evenings after the sun had set. He filled sketchbook after sketchbook, his confidence growing with each drawing. He started sharing his work online, posting his sketches on social media. To his surprise, people responded. They left encouraging comments, praising his talent and his unique style. He connected with other artists online, finding a community of like-minded souls. For the first time in years, James felt a sense of belonging, a purpose. He was no longer just a data analyst, he was an artist, and it felt amazing. One day, James received a message from an old friend, Lisa. Lisa, a freelance writer, had been following his art journey online. She was impressed by his talent and his dedication. She also knew about his recent job loss. "You know, James," she wrote, "you're good enough to do this professionally. You should consider pursuing illustration full-time." James hesitated. The thought of making a living from his art was both exhilarating and terrifying. He had a mortgage to pay, bills to cover. Could he really make a go of it as an artist? He shared his fears with Lisa. Lisa, ever the pragmatist, encouraged him to start small. "Why don't you try freelancing?" she suggested. "Build up your portfolio, get your name out there. You never know what might happen." Her words resonated with James. He knew she was right. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain. With renewed determination, James decided to take the plunge. Section 6. The Freelance Frontier. James spent the next few weeks creating a portfolio of his best work. He researched online platforms for freelance illustrators. He learned about pricing, contracts, and self-promotion. He felt overwhelmed at times, but he persevered. He knew this was his chance to turn his passion into a living. He started small, taking on any freelance project he could find. He illustrated children's books, designed website graphics, even created custom portraits for clients online. The pay wasn't always great, and the hours were long, but James didn't mind. He was doing what he loved, and that made all the difference. Word of mouth spread, and soon James was getting more and more freelance work. He built relationships with clients, some of whom became repeat customers. He learned to manage his time effectively, juggling multiple projects at once. He was his own boss, setting his own hours and making his own creative decisions. For the first time in his life, James felt truly fulfilled. Section 7. The Inner Critic Looms. Despite his growing success, James wasn't immune to self-doubt. There were days when he woke up feeling like a fraud, convinced that he wasn't good enough. The fear of failure loomed large, whispering insidious doubts in his ear. He would compare himself to other artists, their work seemingly effortless and perfect. He would scrutinize his own creations, finding fault with every line and every brushstroke. He would question his decision to pursue art professionally, wondering if he had made a huge mistake. On those days, it was a struggle to even pick up a pencil, let alone create something he was proud of. But James had come too far to give up now. He knew that self-doubt was part of the creative process, a hurdle that every artist had to overcome. He learned to silence his inner critic, to focus on the joy of creation rather than the fear of failure. Section 8. Colors of Success. One day, James saw a flyer for a local art exhibition. He hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. This was his chance to showcase his work to a wider audience, to step out of his comfort zone and into the spotlight. But what if people hated his art? What if he made a fool of himself? He almost talked himself out of it, but then he remembered Lisa's words. You never know what might happen. With a deep breath, James decided to go for it. He submitted a selection of his best illustrations, his hands trembling as he hit the send button. Weeks later, James received an email informing him that his work had been accepted for the exhibition. He was overjoyed. The exhibition was a resounding success. People connected with James's art. They were drawn to his unique style, his ability to capture emotion and tell stories through his illustrations. A renowned art collector was particularly impressed with James's work. He offered James a contract to represent him at his prestigious gallery. It was a dream come true. Section 9. A Life Redrawn. 5 years later, James Carter was a successful illustrator. His work had been featured in magazines, books, and advertising campaigns. He had won awards, received critical acclaim, and built a loyal following of fans. He had even illustrated Lisa's latest children's book, a testament to their enduring friendship and mutual support. But perhaps the most rewarding part of James's journey was the opportunity to mentor aspiring artists. He taught workshops, gave talks, and shared his story with anyone who would listen. He encouraged others to pursue their passions no matter how late in life they started. He wanted everyone to experience the joy and fulfillment that he had found in art. James Carter had come a long way from the data analyst who felt trapped in a life of quiet desperation. He had embraced his creativity, faced his fears, and transformed his life. He was living proof that it's never too late to pursue your dreams.